The Roots of Hate, Hitler's Targeting of Jews, Predictions, Zionism, and the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict.
Adolf Hitler's persecution of the Jewish people, culminating in the Holocaust, is one of the most significant and horrifying chapters of modern history. However, Hitler's beliefs about Jewish influence, his genocidal policies, and the subsequent rise of Zionism have sparked debates that extend far beyond the events of the Holocaust. Some argue that Hitler's warnings about Jewish dominance have taken on new meaning in light of the State of Israel's actions, particularly in its treatment of Palestinians, and that other atrocities committed in the modern world, particularly in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, reflect the complexities of power, victimhood, and oppression. This exploration delves into Hitler's targeting of Jews, the creation of Israel, and how modern politics align with and diverge from Hitler's predictions.
1. Hitler's views on Jewish influence.
Adolf Hitler's hatred of Jews was rooted in a toxic mixture of long-standing European anti-Semitism, post-World War I political and economic instability, and his own racial ideology. He viewed Jews not simply as a religious or ethnic group, but as a global conspiracy intent on manipulating societies to their benefit. Hitler blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War I, accusing them of orchestrating both capitalism and communism to destabilize the country.
In Hitler's worldview, Jews were responsible for corrupting and weakening societies from within, and he saw their influence as a global threat that extended beyond Europe. This perception of a global Jewish conspiracy became central to his campaign of genocide, in which the eradication of Jews was framed as a necessary step to secure a racially pure world dominated by the Aryan race. He believed that eliminating Jews from Germany was not enough, their influence needed to be eradicated globally to prevent the destruction of other nations.
2. The Holocaust and its place in history.
The Holocaust, during which 6 million Jews were systematically murdered, remains one of the most brutal genocides in history. The industrialization of mass murder, concentration camps, and gas chambers marked the Holocaust as a unique tragedy. However, it is important to recognize that genocides and other atrocities have continued to occur, both before and after the Holocaust.
Some argue that, while the Holocaust is widely regarded as a singular atrocity, other acts of violence, particularly in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, deserve similar recognition. In this light, critics assert that Israeli policies toward Palestinians, including displacement, military occupation, and settlement expansion, reflect forms of oppression that need to be addressed in global discussions about genocide and human rights.
3. Hitler's call for the global eradication of Jews.
Hitler's ultimate goal extended far beyond Germany's borders. His belief in a global Jewish conspiracy led him to advocate for the complete eradication of Jews worldwide. Hitler saw Jews as the root of all global problems, including economic crises, political instability, and the spread of ideologies like communism, which he linked directly to Jewish influence.
He believed that Jews, through control of international finance, media, and politics, were undermining national sovereignty and destabilizing societies. His genocidal ambitions were not limited to Europe, but aimed at ridding the world of Jewish influence entirely. Hitler's final solution was therefore not just about Germany, it was about reshaping the global order to exclude Jews completely.
4. The Zionist movement and the creation of Israel.
Zionism, a political movement that began in the late 19th century, sought to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine as a solution to centuries of Jewish persecution. After World War II and the Holocaust, the movement gained significant momentum, and in 1948, the State of Israel was established with international support, particularly from the United States and Britain.
For many Jews, the creation of Israel represented a refuge and a solution to the centuries of displacement and persecution they had endured, culminating in the Holocaust. However, the establishment of Israel came at a great cost to the Palestinian people, who were displaced in large numbers during the Nakba catastrophe, and have lived under occupation and refugee status ever since. The conflict over land and sovereignty has defined the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with deep roots in both Jewish and Palestinian claims to the region.
5. The Palestinian claim to the land.
The land that became Israel in 1948 had been home to a predominantly Palestinian Arab population for centuries. Palestinians argue that they are the rightful owners of this land and that the creation of Israel constituted an unjust displacement of indigenous people. This claim lies at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as Palestinians demand the right to return to their ancestral lands and establish an independent state.
The ongoing expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, the blockade of Gaza, and military occupation have been condemned by many international human rights organizations. Palestinians continue to struggle for sovereignty and recognition in the face of these policies, viewing them as forms of ethnic cleansing and colonialism that deny their basic rights.
6. Zionism and global influence, a controversial legacy.
Critics of the modern state of Israel argue that the country's actions, particularly in its treatment of Palestinians, reflect a form of global influence that echoes certain aspects of what Hitler claimed to fear. The State of Israel has become a powerful actor in global politics, receiving strong backing from Western nations, particularly the United States. Critics argue that Israel's policies toward Palestinians, including its military actions, settlement expansion, and control of resources, have created an imbalance of power that oppresses Palestinians.
In this context, some critics argue that the Zionist movement, which sought to secure a homeland for Jews after centuries of persecution, has evolved into a political force that has committed its own acts of violence and displacement. However, it is essential to distinguish between legitimate criticism of Israeli policies and the dangerous anti-Semitic narratives that Hitler propagated. The debate surrounding Israeli actions must focus on human rights and justice rather than falling into the traps of historical prejudice.
7. Religious Zionism and the chosen people of belief.
A key element of Zionism, particularly religious Zionism, is the belief that Jews are the chosen people of God, based on biblical tradition. This belief is central to the religious justification for Jewish claims to the land of Israel. However, critics argue that this concept, when interpreted politically, has been used to justify the displacement and mistreatment of Palestinians, who have lived on the land for centuries.
Palestinians and their supporters view these religious claims as part of a broader colonial project that denies their rights and delegitimizes their connection to the land. The belief in Jewish exceptionalism, rooted in both religious and political narratives, has further deepened the divide between Israelis and Palestinians, making it difficult to find common ground in peace negotiations.
8. Hitler's prediction and the modern Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Some observers argue that Hitler's predictions about Jewish influence, while rooted in dangerous and false ideology, have taken on new significance in light of Israel's global role. Israel's close alliances with Western powers, its military strength, and its strategic importance in the Middle East have given it significant influence on the world stage. Critics contend that this power dynamic has allowed Israel to act with impunity in its treatment of Palestinians, leading to accusations of war crimes, apartheid, and human rights violations.
While comparisons to Hitler's beliefs should be approached with caution, the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict highlights the complexities of power and oppression in the modern world. Palestinians continue to face displacement, military occupation, and restricted access to resources, and their struggle for self-determination remains unresolved.
9. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the search for justice.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains one of the most intractable and polarizing issues in global politics. Palestinians continue to seek self-determination, the right of return, and an independent state, while Israel emphasizes its need for security and survival in a region marked by hostility. Efforts to broker peace, such as the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, have largely failed, leaving the conflict unresolved.
As the conflict drags on, the suffering of Palestinians under occupation remains a major human rights issue, with limited progress toward a just and lasting resolution. The international community must continue to advocate for a solution that recognizes the rights and dignity of both Palestinians and Israelis, addressing historical grievances while focusing on the future.
Conclusion: a complex legacy of power, oppression, and conflict.
Hitler's targeting of Jews was rooted in deeply flawed and dangerous anti-Semitic ideology, which led to one of the most significant genocides in history. However, the legacy of the Holocaust, the rise of Zionism, and the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict reflect the complexities of power, victimhood, and oppression in the modern world.
While the Holocaust remains a defining moment of human suffering, it is essential to recognize that other genocides and forms of violence continue to occur, including the oppression of Palestinians. Understanding this legacy requires confronting difficult truths and working toward a just and peaceful resolution that honors the rights of all people involved.